Morning Glories, Ducks, and Memory Rivers. I was rummaging through the music in the piano bench a few days ago and ran across a little Albert E. Brumley songbook I bought at a Beach Bend park in Bowling Green, Kentucky almost 20 years ago. Leafing through the book, I found a number of Brumley's songs, including Turn Your Radio On, Nobody Answered Me, There's a Little Pine Log Cabin, and Did You Ever Go Sailing Down a River of Memory. The last song reminded me of the biggest surprise I ever had while I was teaching in a one-room school in the mid-40s. I had taught 2 schools on the north side of Green River and had successfully finished 2 quarters and 4 summer terms of college work. At last, I was placed in the school nearest my home. The school was named Bethel, but everybody called it Stringtown. It was about a mile from my home and a half a mile from the highway. Teaching there was more of a strain than teaching at Wilson had been. My mother was convalescing from a heart attack, and the burden of housework, cooking, and milking 3 cows by hand, as well as taking care of the sterilization of a cream separator, was a full-time job, besides teaching school. The 20 children there were not nearly as respectful to me as the Wilson children had been, as they had known me for some years, and I was only 5 years older than some of them. One of the older girls was going out with a former boyfriend of mine. Another reason teaching was difficult was that I had taken some education courses and had found out how much I didn't know about teaching. I had recently passed a course at Western Kentucky Teachers College, later to become Western Kentucky University, in public school music. All public school teachers were required to pass this course, which was taught by Mrs. Nellie Gooch Travelstead. She was one of the most colorful characters on campus, perhaps in the world. One of the requirements for passing the course was that each of us had to teach the music class a song without any music whatsoever. We were expected to buy and learn to use a pitch pipe. I struggled through my song, which was, "Dear Morning Glory, I am sure you must get up too soon, or you would stay quite wide awake until the afternoon." My roommate, however, was not so fortunate. She was a shy, dignified only child who could not carry a tune without help when she was nervous. And she did not pass on her day of doom. Unfortunately, she and I encountered Mrs. Travelstead in the middle of Fountain Square in downtown Bowling Green that afternoon. Mrs. T, who sincerely wanted Juanita to pass, made Juanita stick her head in her car and sing, "A little ducky Duddle went wading in a puddle quite small. Said he, it doesn't matter how much I splash and splatter, I'm only a ducky after all." Either Juanita got it right or Mrs. T took pity on her and passed her. As I was walking towards school one day, I decided I knew mine and Juanita's songs, so I could teach them to the children, even if I was hesitant about matching pitch. After the pledge to the flag and the Bible reading, which used to be Kentucky state law, I announced brightly, "We're going to sing this morning." All their faces lit up, and before I could open my mouth to teach them the song line by line as I had been taught to do, they had regrouped themselves into 4 of the biggest double seats at the rear right-hand corner of the room. Without bickering, hesitation, or discussion, they launched into "Did You Ever Go Sailing?" in perfect pitch, rhythm, and close harmony. If the Mormon Tabernacle Choir had marched in and started singing, I couldn't have been more surprised. They sang every verse and chorus and immediately began another song. I'm still surprised that children aged 6 to 14 with no musical training could sing like that. I shall never forget the joy in their voices as they sang purely because they loved making music. I do not know how often I let them sing in the 2 months I taught there before the strain got too much for me and my parents hired a lady to do housework so I could return to Western and get my degree in secondary education. I do know I had sense enough not to teach them any Morning Glory and Ducky Duddle songs. I've wondered about that experience many times in the past 40 years, and I wonder if we are not on the wrong track when we expect children to conform to a prescribed curriculum when they are way ahead of what we were trying to teach them. Standardized tests are so limited in what they test that we can't possibly judge by them what children have learned. Just because the skill is not tested on the standardized test does not mean that other knowledge and skills are not valuable any more than not knowing the little song about the morning glory didn't mean that the little Stringtown children couldn't sing or appreciate music. One of the songs the children sang that day 40 years ago was Precious Memories. One of my most cherished memories is of that unexpected, rich, beautiful sound coming out of those untrained children's throats.